every filmmaker seems to have that one movie that's just kind of slipped under the cracks. The one that both fans and general audiences have kind of forgotten about unless someone points it out, and then they go, oh yeah, I kind of vaguely remember that movie. I find more often than not, I can find something a filmmaker has worked on that deserves way better than what it's gotten. And that is definitely the case with tonight's film. I'm Ryan Reed, and this is Fright Films. The Frighteners is a 1996 film directed by Peter Jackson. Most people know him as the guy that directed the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but he also directed a big-budget adaptation of King Kong, as well as the Hobbit trilogy, which kind of had mixed reviews. To be honest, I only ever saw part of the first one because it shouldn't take me longer to watch all three movies based on a book than it does reading the actual book itself. But what I really love about Peter Jackson are his early films. If you're a horror fan and exploitation movie fan like myself, then you're probably aware that Jackson started off in that department with his alien splatstick film Bad Taste, his dark comedy puppet film Meet the Feebles, and arguably his most famous early work to gorehounds, Brain Dead, or as it's known here in the States, Dead Alive. These type of films are set in my favorite subgenre of movies, the horror comedy. They're filled with as many severed body parts as they are gut laughs, and then the gut is ripped out and then it's thrown against the wall, and that just creates more laughter and more gore and more severed body parts and all kinds of crazy stuff. Jackson was a master of these films, creating them on budgets that should be inspirational to all no-budget filmmakers out there. It shows what you can do with very little. After this film, Jackson directed the psychological thriller Heavenly Creatures. Admittedly, I've never seen this movie. I probably should, considering I'm talking about Peter Jackson, but sometimes I just kind of forget it exists. Despite my lack of seeing the film, critics gave it tremendous praise, and it opened up all kinds of doors for Jackson, eventually leading to The Lord of the Rings. But before that, there was one little detour of a movie that I believe is Jackson's most underrated film. It's The Frighteners. I mean, it's the movie we're talking about. It's The Frighteners. It's the one you clicked on. I mean, the title says The Frighteners, so it's that one. Beginning as a 3-page treatment by Jackson and co-writer Fran Walsh, The Frighteners found its way to Robert Zemeckis. You know, Robert, I made one of the greatest trilogies of all time, and then I kind of just started making all these weird motion capture movies that live in the uncanny valley. Zemeckis. To be honest, though, I do really like Polar Express. It's a good movie. Zemeckis originally wanted to make it a spin-off to Tales from the Crypt, but found the work so strong that he asked Walsh and Jackson to write a full screenplay, later asking Jackson to direct while Zemeckis executive produced. Thus, in 1995, work began on The Frighteners. And what can I say to explain how great this movie is? Like all of the best horror comedies, it sits in that happy middle ground of being ridiculous and over the top at one moment and being dark and disturbing the next. It's also the perfect meeting point of early career Jackson and late career Jackson. It's filled with ghosts, slapstick, violence, but also at the biggest budget Jackson had worked with up to that point, and it starred Michael J. Fox in the lead role. The film was such a big production for Jackson that, according to his opening on the director's cut DVD, it required 500 CGI shots. And on top of that, it helped his digital effects company, Weta, expand from one computer to 35. And that eventually led to The Lord of the Rings because Jackson was looking for projects that allowed him to continue using all these computers they had bought. Jackson's style is in full force here too. See, the effects may seem a little dated by today's standards, but they're so stylized that they fit in with a very stylized film. Everything is recognizable as a real place, but just slightly, or in some cases, very exaggerated. All the actors get to have fun. They know when to be subtle and when to be over the top. They get to chew the scenery in the best possible way. Michael J. Fox plays Frank Bannister, a paranormal con man who tricks people into believing they have ghosts and that he can get rid of them. The twist on the trope is that the ghosts actually do exist, but Frank is working with them as his Frighteners. Get it? That's the title. The title is The Frighteners. Meanwhile, in the town, people are dying in a strange heart attack-like manner, and it falls on Frank to figure out exactly what is going on. Fox is great here. He's got the same charisma that he does in all of his other roles, but he's also got this sleaziness that's there and this true sadness that bleeds through more and more as the film goes on. The supporting cast is amazing as well, including Trini Alvarado, John Astin, Arlie Ermey, and Jake Busey, who is truly disturbing at times. And that's just a few of the cast members. My favorite performance, however, is Jeffrey Combs, who most horror fans will recognize as Herbert West from the Reanimator series. Here he plays Special Agent Milton Dammers, a guy who has clearly lost it due to years of being an undercover agent in various cults. He's so over the top and insane here that in any other film, it would be out of place. But here it works beautifully. The film even seems to stop at points and relish in his paranoid rants. It is amazing to watch. And there's so many other touches that just enrich this world. The score by Danny Elfman is both over the top and subtle, sometimes at the same time. I don't know how that works. The music over the opening sets the tone perfectly. It's dark, whimsical, serious, sad, and zany, all at the same time. Elfman's scores are always great, but much like the rest of the film, this one doesn't get enough praise. The location is also fitting. To my knowledge, it's never specifically stated where the film takes place, but it's got this vibe of a small coastal community, maybe a small town in Oregon or Maine. That said, the film was shot in New Zealand, where Jackson was from, and because of this, it adds this familiar but otherworldly quality to the location. The fog rolls in over the hills that lead to the water, the roads are twisty-turny two-lane terrors. Everything feels familiar but different, and it works so well. There are two cuts to The Frighteners. There's the theatrical cut and the director's cut, which runs 14 minutes longer. I currently own the director's cut on my DVD, but the version I originally saw was the theatrical cut when it ran on TV. I had never heard of it, and no one else I knew had ever heard of it. My family just randomly stumbled upon it one day when we were flipping through the channels. We found it, we were all baffled by it, and the film never really left me after we watched it, until I was able to discover it years later on DVD. As for which cut to watch, I would probably recommend the director's cut. It's not a major difference, the scenes don't really change the plot in any pivotal way, but they just add enough to continue to grow this engrossing world. So if you can find that version, check out the director's cut. Ultimately, The Frighteners has become something of a cult classic. It didn't do well on its initial release, but people have discovered it along the way. Still, even within the community of horror movie fans, I don't see it getting as much attention as it deserves. So if you've never seen The Frighteners before, please do yourself a favor and go give it a watch. And if you have seen it before, maybe now is the time to revisit it and enjoy a really creative world made by a guy who later on just kind of makes Hobbit movies. I'm Ryan Reed. Go watch a movie.